You know, when we talk about disability and inclusion, our minds usually jump straight to things like ramps or accessible buildings. But what if the biggest barriers aren't made of concrete at all? Today, we're diving deep into social inclusion, which goes way beyond just physical access. We're talking about the very heart of what it means to truly belong.
And that brings us to the big question, really. The one we've got to ask ourselves. Is it a person's condition that's actually limiting them? Or is it the attitudes, the beliefs, and just the way society is structured around them? Let's keep that question in our back pocket as we go through this.
All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll talk about the invisible walls. Then, we'll look at a blueprint for belonging. After that, we'll see some amazing global stories of this in action. And we'll wrap it all up with the fight for justice.
Okay, let's get into it. To really get a handle on social inclusion, we have to start by seeing the obstacles that are, well, invisible. The ones we can't just point to.
These walls of exclusion, they're built from all sorts of things. You got these big societal things, like widespread prejudices and just plain wrong ideas about disability. But then it gets personal. A family's fear, or maybe their instinct to overprotect, can actually end up isolating someone. And all those outside barriers, they can start to creep inward, you know? Chipping away at a person's self-confidence. And yet, all of this is on top of the physical barriers we know about, like bad transport or buildings that literally shut people out.
And this quote from a young woman in Uganda, wow, it just makes it so incredibly real. This isn't just about not getting invited to a party. It's about being shut out from the most fundamental parts of being human. Relationships, vital health information, all because of what other people assume about you.
So, if those are the walls, how in the world do we start tearing them down? Well, the good news is we're not starting from zero. The World Health Organization has laid out this really powerful framework, a kind of blueprint for what they call community-based inclusion.
And this is brilliant because it shows you it's not just one thing. It's a whole strategy with 5 key parts. It covers the practical stuff like personal assistance, but it also gets into the deeply human stuff like the right to relationships and family. Then there's the joy of life, culture, arts, sports. And tying it all together is the absolute necessity of justice. These 5 pillars together, they create a full picture of what a real social life looks like.
But here's the best part. This isn't just some theory sitting in a report. All over the world, communities are actually doing this stuff, and it's changing lives. So let's look at a few stories that show how this blueprint really comes to life.
We're going to start with that first pillar, personal assistance. And for that, we're headed to Korea to meet a 13-year-old boy, Jae-hwan.
So here's the key takeaway from his story. Jae-hwan's isolation, it wasn't an automatic result of his condition. Not at all. It was from a lack of support. As soon as his community stepped up with volunteers and the right equipment, those walls just crumbled. He didn't just get to go back to school. He got to reconnect with his friends, his world.
Next, let's talk about that really personal pillar, relationships and family. For this, we have an incredibly powerful story from Julian Priscilla Mabangwe in Malawi.
Julian's story is it's about incredible courage. She was facing down immense pressure, even from her own family, who thought her disability meant she couldn't be a mother. But she fought for that right. Her story is a direct challenge to those deep-seated prejudices that try to deny people one of the most fundamental rights we have, to form a family.
Okay, let's move to our third pillar, culture and arts. We're going to Colombia, where an organization called FANDIC is using dance in a pretty transformative way.
And the results are just fantastic. I mean, think about it. For these kids, dance becomes this amazing tool. It's not just art. It's a way to make tough, grueling rehabilitation actually fun. But it's so much more. It builds their confidence, it strengthens family bonds, and, this is huge, it puts their talents out there for everyone to see, actively smashing stereotypes about what they're capable of.
And for our fourth pillar, recreation and sport, let's jump over to Morocco. There, a national project has shown just how powerful inclusive play can be.
This project reached over 1,500 people. And it wasn't just about, handing out special equipment like balls that make noise for players with visual impairments. It was about creating these big, inclusive events where people with and without disabilities played and competed together, side by side. It proved, without a doubt,
that the joy of sport is for absolutely everyone.
All these amazing stories of participation are inspiring, for sure, but they all lean on this final, absolutely critical pillar, the fight for justice. Because what happens when those rights, the right to participate, to have a family, to work, what happens when they're denied?
Now, to really get this, we have to understand a concept called legal capacity. It sounds a little technical, I know, but it's actually super simple. It's just about being recognized as a person in the eyes of the law, with the right to make your own decisions. This basic fundamental status is, way too often, denied to people with disabilities, which basically makes them invisible to the justice system.
So when things go wrong, there are really two main paths you can take. First, there's informal justice. This is where you use community networks, elders, local leaders, to fix a problem. Like the woman in Ghana who, with her community's help, was able to claim her inheritance. And then there's the formal justice system. We're talking courts, lawyers, the whole official process, which, let's be honest, can be really complex and expensive.
And this story from the Philippines is just a perfect example of how powerful that formal system can be when people can actually access it. A group of deaf bank employees were fired totally unfairly, but they got free legal aid and they took their fight all the way to the Supreme Court. And they won. It was a massive victory that shows that with the right support, the law can be an incredibly powerful weapon against discrimination.
In the end, everything we've talked about, every single pillar of this framework, from personal assistance to sports to justice, it all comes back to this one simple, profound idea: making this principle a lived, breathing reality for every single person on this planet. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that building a truly inclusive world, well, that's not somebody else's job. It's on all of us. The blueprint is there. The stories prove it can be done. So the only real question left is the one we have to ask ourselves. What's my role, what's your role in actually building it?